Hi, today I'm going to show you how to transform Camelina using an agrobacterium vacuum infiltration method. So we have our Camelina here that we have grown down in the greenhouse, and we grow them in a 3.5-inch pot, and we only put one plant per pot. So for every construct that you want to transform, we use one tray, so 18 plants. So this is the stage that we typically use them in. They're flowering, and they take about 4 to 5 weeks to flower in the greenhouse. And what we're looking for is a lot of developing floral buds on these side branches, and also open flowers, and very few seed pods developing. So this is a good stage for transforming them. So the first thing what you want to do is to transform your construct into agrobacterium. And we typically use the strain C58 or GB3101 for our Camelina transformations. So once you have your plate with your transformed agro, what you want to do is to make up some YEP media. And you can see the recipe here. It contains, for 500 mils, 5 grams of yeast extract, 2.5 grams of sodium chloride, and 5 grams of peptone. So once you have that, you're ready to set up your cultures for transforming Camelina. So the first thing you want to do is to do a 5 mil, a small starter culture. And so this is 5 mils of YEP, and then of course you'll put your appropriate antibiotics, and then you'll take a colony off of your plate and put it in here. And it's really important to check your agrobacterium beforehand to make sure they contain the construct that you have transformed in. So I typically start this in the morning culture, and then by the next day you'll see, I don't know if you can see how cloudy it is. So we're looking for, we don't measure the cell density, just make sure it looks this saturated. So, and you'll be growing that at 28 degrees with shaking. So after that, the next stage, what you'll want to do is to do a larger culture. And this is a 500 mil YEP culture. So what you're going to do is to take this 5 mil culture and put it into the 500 mils of YEP, again with the appropriate antibiotics. And you're going to grow this overnight. Well, we're going to grow it for 24 hours at 28 degrees of shaking. And so again, you're going to see that it's pretty cloudy here, and we don't measure the cell density. We just grow it for about 24 hours and go to the next step. So the next step you're going to do is to take that culture and you're going to spin it down. And I have the conditions here. I typically do 4,000 RPMs for 20 minutes at room temperature. And so you're just going to pellet the cells, and here's an example of what that will look like. You'll get a nice pink pellet here at the bottom. And then the next step is you're going to put it in an infiltration media. And the recipe here is for, and we're going to make 500 mils of that for each transformation. So it's 25 grams of sucrose and 250 microliters of the Silhouette L77. And I have made that here on the end. So what I'm going to do now is to pour the infiltration media into these bottles. And I'm going to just let it sit a little bit and then resuspend it by shaking. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm just going to pour a little bit in here to cover that cell pellet. And so I'm just going to let it sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to shake it like this. And already you can see that the pellet is being resuspended. So we'll go ahead and do that for both of them. So you can see now that we have the pellets resuspended. So pink color. And what I'm going to do now is to take the rest of the infiltration media, and I'm just going to pour these in here. Okay, so here it is. And what I'm going to do is I have a little tray here that I'm going to pour some of the solution into. And then I'm going to put the rest of the beaker in here. So like I said, we are going to use a vacuum infiltration method. You can also just dip the flowers and the side branches, the developing floral buds. So if you don't have this vacuum, you can just dip them, but that process is less efficient. It will work, but I suggest dipping the florals once and then waiting a week, putting it back in the greenhouse, waiting another week, and then doing it again just to try to get more transformance. So this is the method I prefer. And what I'm going to do is actually, when I put it into this chamber, I'm only going to be able to get like this top of the plant because it's pretty tall. And I'm only going to be able to submerge this part. But you can see there's lots of little branches all along here that have developing floral buds. And so what I'm going to do first is try to dip them. And this can be messy, so make sure you wear a lab coat and gloves. And I'm just going along, and so I'm just dipping all of these developing floral buds all along here. Okay, so we put 3 plants into this vacuum at a time. It is a little tight, but it works well. So here I'm doing the second plant. I'm just dipping all the floral buds in there. Putting that into the vacuum. And then the last one, again, getting all these side branches. And the reason I'm doing this is because, like I said before, it can only submerge in that beaker the top 1/3 of the plant. And so you'll be missing a bunch of developing floral buds. Okay, so we have our 3 plants in here. And they are pretty flexible. You do have to be a little careful that you don't bend the stems and break them. So I'm just kind of tugging back like this and submerging as much of the plant in here as I can. Okay, something like that. Okay, so we have a vacuum system in our building that we're going to use. But if you don't have that, you can buy a portable pump that you can use for this purpose. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn ours on over here. And I'm going to make sure that this lid is sealed. So I'm pulling it up and it's not coming up, so there's a good vacuum. And we vacuum this for 5 minutes. So I'm going to start my timer. And when this is done, I'll show you the next step. Okay, now that our 5 minutes is done, we're going to go ahead and turn off the vacuum. And then we're going to release the vacuum. Now, you want to release it kind of slowly. You want there to be a pressure difference so that the agar can get to where it's supposed to. But you also don't want to damage your plants. If you release it too fast, it can damage those floral tissues. So I'm just going to kind of release it slowly. Okay, so once I have that release, I'll take off the lid. And then what I've got here is I prepared a tray that I'm going to lay them on their side. And I put some wet paper towels in here. And the reason for this is I want to retain the humidity. So I want the tissues of the plant to stay in an accessible configuration for the agar to get in. And I want the agar to be able to move where it needs to. So I want to keep everything humid. So I'm going to pull these plants out. I'm just gonna lay them in the tray here. Then I'm also gonna put a dome on. Again, that's to retain that humidity. And I'm gonna leave them, so I would go through the whole tray and leave them on this cart overnight here in the lab. And then tomorrow morning I would come in and put them back in the tray and stake them up and put them back in the greenhouse until they set seed. Once they set seed, I'll harvest the seeds and then look for your transgenic seeds using different methods like DS Red or spraying with pasta. So I hope that this video has been informative for you, and good luck on your Camelina transformation.